Despite his difficulty forming lasting relationships, Dexter still managed to find himself in several romantic relationships over the years. But not all of these connections were created equal. Today we're going to rank the 7 levels of Dexter's partners, starting with the least developed connection in level 1. Level 1, Sofia Rivera.
God, you are so sexy.
Nothing lasts forever, and the relationship in this tier is a testament to that. Dexter had plenty of relationships that went the distance, but early on, that wasn't so easy. He has trouble reading other people's emotions, unless of course they were feeling murderous urges. As a result, he regularly misread signals from girls who were clearly interested in him. In the original series, a girl from his school subtly tried to get Dexter to ask her to a school dance, but he was completely oblivious to what she wanted. Harry had to pull Dexter aside and tell him how to approach the situation. With his father's guidance, he eventually found himself with a date to the dance and deeper understanding for dealing with romantic advances. Still, those skills were far from perfected. In Original Sin, Dexter finds himself being pursued by one of Deb's friends. Her name was Sophia, and regardless of how incredibly awkward he was, she thought Dexter was really cute. She didn't hide it either. Deb thought it was gross at first, but quickly got on board, excited to have double dates with her best friend and her brother. And Dexter remained blissfully unaware until Deborah spelled it out plainly for him. Sophia liked him, and he could have a cool and really pretty girlfriend if he played his cards right. It took a lot of background work on Deb's part, but eventually Sophia and Dexter became a couple of sorts. Dates, gifts, public affection, the whole 9 yards. But like every relationship he would go on to have, the relationship with Sophia quickly deteriorated. After a long night of killing and disposing of a body, Dexter had missed so many calls and pages from Sophia that she was infuriated. And when she saw a condom wrapper on the floor of his truck, trash that stuck to him as he tried to get rid of his victim's body in the garbage, she was convinced that he was cheating on her. She believed that that was the real reason he hadn't called her back and broke up with him on the spot. Little did she know, a person with more emotional savvy may have been able to explain their way out of that situation, but Dexter didn't know how, and it seemed like he wasn't even that interested in saving his relationship with Sophia. He just let her leave, almost as if he was relieved not to have to keep pretending to know how to be a boyfriend. This is a clear level 1 relationship because although it did happen, it didn't mean much to Dexter. It helped him seem normal, and he did use it to learn more about dating and blending in. And there's also that bar restroom scene, but it was a little more than a blip on a radar of his life. Level 2, Mia LaPierre. The sort of relationship between Dexter and Mia LaPierre is a twisted blend of attraction and miscalculation. They first met at one of the secret gatherings organized by Leon Prater, after Dexter assumed the identity of Ronald Red Schmidt to infiltrating the group of killers he fraternized with. Mia was a charismatic wine sommelier who was also a serial killer, known in the press as Lady Vengeance. She was known to target sexual predators as her victims, at least at first, which led Dexter to believe that she had a code of her own. From their first meeting, Mia flirted with Dexter. She invited him to hang out, go for a run, and even to her Airbnb. She teased him and even proposed they take a shower together, all the while revealing herself as someone who sees Dexter as more than just another player in Prater's game. Dexter is drawn to her physical magnetism and what he initially perceives as that shared code of killing only people who deserved it. While they were jogging together through Central Park, she confided part of her backstory to him, drawing them closer together. She had apparently lived through childhood trauma that included her younger sister being abused by their mother's boyfriend, which triggered Mia's violent path. She killed the boyfriend and never looked back. Dexter really began to believe that Mia might be someone who, like him, channeled her urge to kill within a clear moral boundary. But eventually, she would let all of the pretense fall away. She suggests that she and Dexter collaborate on a kill and even tells him that any driver will do, revealing she just likes to kill and didn't actually need a worthy victim like he did. At that moment, Dexter realized the fundamental difference between them. Mia had no code. She killed for pleasure alone. That revelation shattered any sense of connection he felt to her and forced him to see her as somebody far more dangerous than he initially believed. Faced with the uncomfortable truth that Mia is just another murderer, Dexter decided to turn the tables on her. He planted evidence in her apartment to frame her for the murder of Ryan Foster, to save his son, and got her arrested. After Dexter called it in, the NYPD intervened just as Mia was about to carry out another killing. With Mia's arrest, Dexter severed their budding relationship, but he had no interest in being being connected with someone who had no boundaries at all and killed innocent people. This is a level 2 relationship because even though she didn't know his true identity, Mia was aware that Dexter was a killer. That was something they had in common, and it reminded Dexter of his desire for connection after almost dying in Iron Lake. He was solely focused on surviving, evading jail time, and getting back to his son before he went to Leon's dinner party. But after meeting Mia, he built up more confidence and started to think more deeply about his life after the near-death experience. Their relationship started with mutual fascination because Dexter saw a possible kindred spirit after a decade of lying in Iron Lake, and Mia saw him as a mysterious man who she wanted to get to know better because maybe they were more alike than the other members of Prater's serial killer club. But once Dexter discovered the truth behind Mia's motives, he decisively put an end to their relationship before it ever really began by having her arrested, closing one more dangerous chapter in his life. Maybe if she had stronger morals, or if Dexter had weaker ones, they would have worked out. After all, Mia liked killing, she liked bowling, she had a troubled childhood, and a dysfunctional family life, just like Dexter. But Dexter lived by a code, and as a result, she had to go just like the rest of the killers Prater collected. It may have been fun while it lasted, but it was never going to last after she told Dexter just how depraved she really was. Her honesty was refreshing though, especially when compared to the relationship in the next level. Level 3, Lila West. This level is reserved for the woman who managed to seduce, manipulate, and almost kill Dexter in record time. Most of Dexter's love interests didn't try to kill anyone, let alone Dexter himself, but Lila West wasn't like any of his other girlfriends. For starters, they met while Dexter was masquerading as a recovering addict. Lila was quite perceptive, and she could tell that Dexter was definitely battling something dark. But she almost immediately knew that Dexter was bluffing about having a drug addiction. There is no way she could have known the addiction he did actually have was far worse. She was so obsessed with Dexter that it obviously wouldn't have mattered. It's nice to think that someone could accept Dexter for who he is. After all, he spends so much of the series searching for someone who would. Once Harry died, no one else in Dexter's orbit knew him for who he truly was. He was obviously too terrified to tell anyone, fearing that they would reject him at best and turn him in at worst. As a result, he floated through most of his life feeling alone, isolated, and never entirely fulfilled. No doubt sensing this, Lila found a pretty easy end to get closer to him. She showed Dexter a radical acceptance that he'd never felt before, and initially Dexter fell for it. Lila was an expert manipulator, and she used those skills to get Dexter to trust her, even as she tried to undermine everything in his life that wasn't directly related to her. Eventually, Lila ruined his relationship with his then girlfriend, Rita Bennett, and tried to taint Dexter's mind against Rita's son, Cody. She regularly got into it with his sister, Deb, and even went out of her way to get close to his coworkers. Anything that he did, she wanted to be a part of it. She was even willing to stage an attack against Dexter and burn her own apartment down to force the two of them closer together. Once Dexter realized how toxic Lila really was, he tried to cut her off, but she wasn't going to let that happen without a fight. She started threatening the people close to him. She broke into Rita's house as an intimidation technique. She also tried to frame Batista for sexual assault, only agreeing to drop the charges if Dexter came back to her. There was no end to what she would be willing to do to get Dexter back. She was deranged. Lila is a tier 3 girlfriend because for a while there, Dexter actually seemed to care about her, and he doesn't care for many people. She also managed to get a few blows in against Dexter by hurting his relationship with Rita, setting him up to be attacked by his mother's killer, and tying up Batista, his friend and coworker, with fraudulent charges. Her final trump card was locking Aster, Cody, and Dexter inside her apartment and trying to kill them in a fire before fleeing the country. Luckily for everyone involved, Dexter had the street smarts to get the kids out first, and eventually himself as well. But the psychological damage of being kidnapped and almost killed was probably something Aster and Cody wouldn't soon forget. Lila was making her mark, and for Dexter and the other people in his life, it was like being hit by a tornado. She was attractive, seductive, accepting, and dedicated, but Lila was also a maniac who didn't know when to let go and move on. She broke into Dexter's car, stole his GPS, stalked his recent whereabouts, and killed Dokes just to impress Dexter. No one in Dexter's life would have been safe if she stayed alive. It's not clear why she was so obsessed with Dexter, but regardless of the reason, the results were deadly. Dexter eventually tracked her down in Paris and eliminated her with ease, and to the very end, she tried to plead for her life and pronounce her love for him, but it was no use. Dexter paralyzed Lila, stabbed her, and zipped her up in a body bag, all within the span of 5 minutes. That's what makes this a tier 3 relationship. Plus, the beginning of the relationship was completely based on lies, so it's doubtful that it would have gone very far at all, but she only sped up the breakup by trying to trick Dexter at every turn. Her neurotic calculating wasn't enough to get past Dexter's defenses. If she wasn't so deeply mentally ill, maybe if she didn't target innocent people, maybe if she hadn't tried to hurt the people closest to him, Dexter could have let her live. Even if they couldn't be a couple, she would have lived a lot longer if she hadn't tried all those shenanigans. Honestly, they never stood a chance. Lila's insanity and Dexter's self-protection made sure of that. Level 4, Angela Bishop. Dexter's relationship with Chief Angela Bishop represented one of the first genuine attempts he made to build a normal life after faking his death and leaving Miami behind. Living under the alias Jim Lindsay in the small, quiet town of Iron Lake, New York, Dexter spent nearly a decade suppressing his dark passenger. During his break from killing, Angela, the town's chief of police, not only became Dexter's romantic partner, but also the anchor that helped him maintain the fragile sense of peace he managed to build. The relationship began innocently enough, but pretty soon that simplicity was ruined by the tension that always arises from Dexter's secret double life. Dexter and Angela met after he had already established himself as a quiet, dependable presence in town. She admired his calm, gentle nature and his apparent honesty. To Angela, Jim was a good man. He was kind, responsible, and steady. Jim was the sort of person she could trust with her heart and around her daughter. Their relationship developed naturally, grounded in small-town intimacy and mutual respect. Dexter played his role perfectly, giving Angela affection and stability. For a time, he even seemed to believe in the illusion himself. With her, Dexter managed to create the appearance of normalcy he had always craved, but could never fully maintain in Miami. But things began to change when Dexter's son, Harrison, suddenly appeared in Iron Lake. His arrival triggered something dormant in Dexter. His old instincts and the darkness he had spent years suppressing were suddenly harder to ignore. While Angela welcomed Harrison warmly, his presence created cracks in Dexter's carefully constructed identity. Not long after that shakeup, Dexter would kill Matt Caldwell, a prominent local who was already responsible for the deaths of 5 people. The moment Dexter started killing again, his relationship with Angela became a ticking time bomb. She was the town's moral compass, a dedicated and intelligent police chief, and inevitably, her investigation into Matt's disappearance led her closer and closer to discovering Dexter's secret life. Dexter couldn't keep pulling the wool over her eyes forever, and that was the main issue with their relationship. At its core, it was built on deception. Angela fell in love with a man who didn't exist. Every kind gesture, every honest moment was tainted by Dexter's lies. When she eventually discovered his true identity as Dexter Morgan, a blood spatter analyst from Miami who was presumed dead, and uncovered his strange connection to multiple killings, it shattered her trust completely. Angela became more and more suspicious and distant from Jim, not only because of the deceit, but because she was convinced that he may be very dangerous. What's worse is that she had genuinely cared for Dexter. Her heart and her gut feeling were at odds, but her commitment to justice won out. Angela's moral code wouldn't allow her to overlook the horrors of what Dexter had done, even if she did love him at one point. And the descent of their relationship was gradual and painstaking. Dexter didn't even realize Angela was onto him until she had him at gunpoint on his knees in her kitchen. For Dexter, Angela represented the life he wanted to have, a life with stability, community, and love. She also represented the inevitability of his downfall. It was just as he always feared. Dex knew he could never truly be honest with her without destroying what they had or ending up in prison. And in the end, both of those things would happen. Still, the relationship was good for Dexter in a few important ways, which is why it's a level 4 at least. Angela grounded Dexter in his humanity and forced him to confront the moral consequences of his actions. She treated him like a real person, not a monster, and believed in the good she saw in him. Even after learning the truth about his estranged son and his fake death back in Miami, Angela showed Dexter an extreme amount of grace and understanding. Through her, Dexter experienced the possibility of redemption, or at least self-awareness and accountability. Their love was doomed from the start, of course, but it gave Dexter something rare, a small glimpse of what a truly honest life might have looked and felt like for him and Harrison. But in the end, Dexter's compulsions would put an end to all of that, leaving him to bleed out in the snow and his son to fend for himself in a cruel world all over again, at least for a little while longer. This relationship isn't ranked as mid because of Angela's shortcomings, but because of Dexter's need to lie to everyone around him. And given her keen eye for the truth, it has never been more obvious that some things just aren't meant to be, and their relationship was one of them. Before you watch any further, I'm happy to finally announce that I'm releasing the first limited drop of my t-shirts. At the start, there are only 100 available, so make sure you buy them while you can at dtmerch.store. Enjoy the video. Level 5, Hannah McKay. From the moment they met, it was clear that Hannah was unlike any woman Dexter had encountered before. She wasn't a fragile soul like Rita or a traumatized partner like Lumen. Hannah was a killer, and a confident one at that. They first crossed paths when Miami Metro reopened an old case involving Hannah's past crimes. Years earlier, she had assisted her boyfriend Wayne Randall in a murder spree across the country. Now, as a free woman, she was helping law enforcement locate the buried bodies. When Dexter met her during that investigation, he sensed something dangerous beneath her calm, graceful exterior. His dark passenger recognized something in her, not disgust as he feels for most killers, but an odd kinship. Their connection began with curiosity. Dexter suspected Hannah of still being a murderer, and he wasn't wrong. When the evidence confirmed she had poisoned several people, Dexter planned to kill her according to his code. But during the confrontation, something unexpected happened. He hesitated. Hannah didn't plead like the rest of his victims. She simply accepted her fate, staring him down and almost daring him to go through with it. Instead, Dexter cut the plastic and kissed her. It was a shocking, instinctive move, and one that revealed the underlying spark of passion. As despicable as it was, there was a recognition between the two as natural predators. That moment marked the beginning of one of Dexter's most intense and revealing relationships. As their relationship developed, Hannah and Dexter became partners in secrecy. She understood him without explanation, accepting his darkness as something natural rather than horrid. For once, Dexter didn't need to fake emotions or hide his true self. With Hannah, he could be honest about his urges. Their chemistry was immediate, dangerous, and genuine. Hannah wasn't scared of his darkness at all. Instead, she admired and embraced it. And Dexter was drawn to her strength and her refusal to feel guilt for what she'd done. For him, she was proof that a person could kill and still live freely without the burden of shame. However, their relationship was far from perfect. Hannah's moral code was far looser than Dexter's. She killed out of convenience, while Dexter followed his incredibly strict code, only killing people who deserved it. Her intensely self-protective nature often clashed with his methodical approach to solving problems, like when she killed author Sal Price to stop him from releasing a book about her crimes. There were also moments when their trust broke down completely, like when Hannah poisoned Deborah, trying to remove what she saw as an obstacle to their relationship. She even lied about it right to his face and tried to gaslight Dexter into feeling bad for even thinking she would do such a thing. But Dexter learned the truth, and the betrayal fractured his confidence in her. Even though his feelings didn't fade, he couldn't allow someone who was willing to kill Deb to walk around freely. He turned over evidence to get her locked up and planned to move on with his life. But of course, Hannah wasn't going to be taken down that easily. She broke out of jail, hunted Dexter down, poisoned him and Deb again before seducing Dexter into re-entering a relationship with her. By the end of it all, they were planning to run away with his son Harrison to live in Argentina to evade police. But after Deb actually did die in the line of duty, Dexter felt despondent. He abandoned both Hannah and Harrison, faked his death, and moved from Miami to Oregon before eventually landing in Iron Lake. Later, Hannah died of pancreatic cancer while raising Harrison in Argentina on her own. Of course, by then, Dexter had already moved on to dating Angela Bishop under the alias of Jim Lindsay. Despite its flaws, the relationship with Hannah had a profound impact on Dexter. She gave him something he'd always lacked: acceptance without judgment. He didn't have to pretend to be completely human with her. Unlike with Rita, Hannah helped Dexter imagine a life outside deception, one where he could live openly, truthfully, and love someone who actually understood him. Though their story ended tragically, Hannah represented Dexter's only real chance at freedom, not just from the law, but from the loneliness that defined his existence as a killer. If she hadn't tried to manipulate him so regularly, if he had loved her enough to stay with her after Deb's death, maybe she could have been ranked higher. But the truth of the matter is that while Dexter trusted her to care for Harrison, he did not trust her or himself to maintain maintain a healthy relationship. Hannah was a kindred spirit, but she was far too self-interested to be good for Dexter, and he was still too self-interested to be good for her, which is completely different from the relationships he had in Level 6. Level 6, Rita Bennett. Dexter met Rita in the first season of the original series, and from their very first moments together, it was clear that their relationship was unique. They were introduced through Deb, who knew Rita from a previous case. At the time, Rita was a fragile single mother recovering from years of abuse by her ex-husband, Paul. She was timid, gentle, and cautious as someone who had been hurt deeply. She was just learning how to live again. For Dexter, who was struggling to appear normal while hiding his identity as a serial killer, Rita was perfect. She didn't ask for too much, didn't demand emotional or even physical intimacy, and she didn't pressure him to open up too much. To Dexter, she was safe and comfortable. Rita provided a shield of domestic regularity that allowed him to blend into the world and maintain the illusion of humanity. At first, Dexter viewed Rita more as a means of camouflage than as a person he truly loved. He often admitted to himself that she served that very purpose. She made him look ordinary. Her children, Aster and Cody, completed that image of the suburban life Harry had always encouraged him to display to the people around him. No one would suspect a wholesome suburban stepdad of being a serial killer. In fact, after Dokes was framed as the Bay Harbor Butcher, his solitary nature was one of the reasons people believed he was guilty. He appeared like a lone wolf with a troubled childhood and rocky relationships. By getting serious with Rita, Dexter avoided that kind of scrutiny. But as their relationship developed, something unexpected happened. Rita's genuine kindness and trust began to affect him. Dexter found himself wanting to protect her, not just because it maintained his cover, but because he cared about her, her children, and her happiness. Her presence provided him with a sense of calm he didn't understand, and through her, he discovered that he was capable of something close to love, even if he could never fully define it. But the relationship was far from perfect, of course. Dexter's detachment and constant lying created a deep imbalance. Rita believed she had found a kind, gentle man who wouldn't hurt her, but she had no idea that her partner lived a secret life as a killer. Whenever she noticed inconsistencies in his behavior, like the late nights, his emotional distance, or his strange need for solitude, Dexter would charm or distract her into ignoring them. The relationship was built on deception, and though Dexter grew to love her, he never gave her his full truth. Rita wanted genuine intimacy. She deserved it, while Dexter could only mimic it. That disconnection, subtle as it was, always hovered in the background, turning their love story into a quiet tragedy waiting to unfold. He got her ex-husband put back in jail where he later died. He lied about having an addiction to avoid responsibility for that. Even almost got her children killed by his crazy ex, Lila. Still, Rita always forgave him. With all of that nurturing and understanding, their relationship was undeniably good for Dexter, perhaps fulfilling the hole that Harry's death left behind. Through her, Dexter learned empathy, patience, and even a kind of responsibility that he never engaged with in his past relationships. Being with Rita forced Dexter to consider consequences beyond himself. It made him think about how his actions affected others. Her children gave him a sense of purpose that wasn't rooted in killing. In many ways, Rita represented Dexter's last chance at humanity. She offered the life he might have had if he weren't controlled by his darkness. Her death at the hands of the Trinity Killer shattered that illusion completely, but it also marked a turning point. Rita's love, though imperfect, revealed that there was a part of Dexter capable of caring, and that was a realization that haunted him, their son, and her children for the rest of his life. The tragedy of their story is that if she had lived, who knows what they could have accomplished together. If he had been able to be honest with her, or if she and the kids hadn't created such an obvious vulnerability for him, this would have been the optimal relationship for Dexter. But because he didn't want to stop killing, and couldn't keep up his routine without the liability of children on his shoulders, there is one other relationship that suited Dexter a little bit better. Level 7, Lumen Pierce. Dexter and Lumen's relationship was perhaps the most unique and emotionally complex of the entire series. They met under extraordinary circumstances, and things could have ended much differently for Lumen if she had been found by anyone else. For many months after Rita was killed by Trinity, Dexter was still reeling from her death. He was suffocating under the guilt and emptiness that followed, having his loved ones ripped from him due to his own actions. He stumbled upon Lumen Pierce just as he was taking out Boyd Fowler, one of the serial rapists and murderers in a larger group of men who had kidnapped and tortured women before killing them and disposing of them in barrels. Dexter discovered Lumen locked in Boyd's kill room, terrified and desperate for help. When he found her, Dexter didn't just see a victim, but a person whose trauma may have been as intense as his. And much like with Dokes, Even though she knew he was a killer, he knew he couldn't kill her because she was an innocent. In the beginning, Dexter didn't plan to get involved with Lumen beyond helping her recover. His instinct was to clean up the mess and protect his secret. He tried to send her back to her family, but Lumen's trauma ran too deep. She refused to just move on. She was consumed by the need for vengeance against the men who had destroyed her life. A drive Dexter understood intimately after years of wanting to avenge his mother's death. Against Harry's advice and his own better judgment, Dexter agreed to help her track down and kill those responsible. Their bond was born then and there, and as two damaged people, they began to find a shared purpose through the other's pain. As they hunted Lumen's abusers together, their relationship evolved from an uneasy alliance into something deeply emotional. Dexter began teaching her his code, guiding her through the rituals and control he had mastered. But where Dexter killed to satisfy his compulsions, Lumen killed to reclaim her humanity. Their connection blurred the line between using one another and actually feeling affection. Remember, this was before he ever met Hannah, so for the first time, Dexter shared his true self with someone who not only accepted it, but embraced it. When they finally became intimate, it represented a real connection. It really was one of the first times since Harry's death that Dexter believed that maybe he could love and be loved without pretense or lies. But sadly, in spite of their deep emotional bond, the relationship was never built to last. Lumen's connection to Dexter was rooted in trauma and vengeance. And once her mission was complete, the reason for that bond disappeared. When the final man responsible for her suffering was dead, Lumen told Dexter she no longer felt the darkness inside her. The need to kill and the bond that came with it was gone. Dexter, however, was not cured. His darkness was still alive and well. He told her that she didn't have to keep killing. He tried to convince her to stay, but Lumen knew better. They were fundamentally different, and there was no safety or happy ending coming for her if she stayed with Dexter. He was a killer, and she was not. She wanted to be normal, and he was never going to be able to offer that. Their relationship's fatal flaw was that it existed only within the boundaries of shared pain. Lumen's healing meant leaving Dexter behind and finally moving on to a peaceful life. Still, the relationship was probably the best one for Dexter. Lumen taught him genuine trust and emotional honesty. She could have turned him in at any point, but Dexter let her live, and she never did turn him in. She obviously truly cared for Dexter, even knowing that he was a serial killer. Rita couldn't know the truth. Neither could Sophia, Cassie, or Angela. Lila and Hannah seemed to want to wield his identity as a killer for their own benefit in one way or another. He didn't have to hide who he was with Lumen or worry about being manipulated for her own selfish ends. For once, he was seen and accepted as an equal and honest partner. Lumen reminded Dexter that he wasn't beyond empathy or connection. This really was a top-tier love connection for Dexter. Even though their time together was short-lived, Lumen awakened something human in Dexter that he probably thought was dead forever after Rita was murdered, and that's why this is so important. Lumen loving him proved that love and understanding could exist even in the darkest people, and that he was worthy of both. In that way, Lumen Pierce really would have been the best partner for Dexter. She wouldn't reject him, hurt his family, or manipulate him for her own gain. She was an honest person who knew how to embrace darkness without judgment and was as dedicated to getting justice as he was. Would you have ranked these relationships differently? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe. As always, thanks for watching.